Education has been around for a very long time. It started thousands of years ago. In ancient times, people learned in different ways. Each civilization had its own methods. Let's look at some early education systems. In Mesopotamia, schools were for boys from rich families. They learned to read and write. They used clay tablets and a writing system called cuneiform. Math was also important. They needed it for trade and building. Teachers were strict and often used punishment. Ancient Egypt had schools too. They were called the houses of life. These schools taught writing, math and religion. Only boys could go to school. They learned to be scribes. Scribes were important in Egyptian society. They kept records and wrote important documents. In ancient Greece, education was different. They focused on the whole person. This meant body and mind. Boys learned reading, writing and math, but they also did sports and music. In Sparta, education was mostly about making good soldiers. In Athens, it was about making good citizens. After the fall of Rome, education changed a lot. The Middle Ages began. The church was very important. Most schools were run by monks. They taught reading, writing, and Latin. Only boys from rich families went to school. Universities started to appear. The first was in Bologna, Italy in 1088. More opened in Paris, Oxford, and Cambridge. They taught law, medicine, and theology. The Renaissance brought new ideas. People became interested in ancient Greek and Roman writings. Education became more about the individual. Young Comenius thought everyone should go to school, even girls. His ideas helped shape modern education. The scientific revolution changed how people thought about the world. It started in the 16th century. Scientists like Galileo and Newton made big discoveries. They showed that the world followed natural laws. This new way of thinking affected education too. Schools started to teach more science and math. They used experiments to learn about nature. This was very different from before. In the past, people just read old books to learn. Now they started to ask questions and find answers themselves. The Enlightenment came after the scientific revolution. It was a time of new ideas about society and human rights. People like John Locke wrote about education. He said that children's minds were like blank slates. He thought education should help fill these slates with knowledge. During this time, more people started to think education was important for everyone, not just for rich boys. Some countries started public schools. These schools were free for all children. This was a big change. It meant more people could learn to read and write. Section 4. The rise of modern education systems. In the 19th century, modern education systems began to take shape. Many countries started to make laws about education. These laws said all children had to go to school. This was called compulsory education. It was a big step forward. The United States passed laws for public schools in every state. In 1870, England made education compulsory for all children. Other countries followed. This meant more children went to school than ever before. It changed society in many ways. Schools started to look more like they do today. They had classrooms with desks. Children were grouped by age. They learned subjects like reading, writing, math, and history. Teachers had more training. They used textbooks and blackboards to teach. During this time, some new ideas about education came up. Maria Montessori in Italy created a new way of teaching young children. She thought children should learn by doing things, not just listening. Her ideas are still used in many schools today. Section 5. Educational reforms, shaping the future of learning. As time went on, people kept trying to make education better. In the 20th century, there were many reforms. These changes tried to fix problems in schools. They also tried to make learning more fair for everyone. One big change was special education. This helped children with disabilities learn better. Schools started to have programs for these students. Another change was bilingual education. This helped students who spoke different languages at home. In many countries, people worked to end segregation in schools. This meant all children could go to the same schools, no matter their race. It was a long and difficult process, but it made education more fair and equal. There were also new ideas about how to teach. Some people thought schools should focus more on creativity. Others wanted more emphasis on science and technology. These debates continue today. People are always looking for ways to improve education. Technology in education, a new era of teaching and learning. Technology has changed education a lot. Computers and the internet have opened up new ways of learning. Students can now access information from all over the world. This has made learning more exciting and interactive. Many schools now use computers in the classroom. The internet has also made distance learning possible. This means people can take classes online. It's especially helpful for adults who want to keep learning. However, technology in education also has challenges. Not all students have access to computers or the internet at home. Schools and governments are working to solve this problem.